This is Ross Feingold on the Taiwan Hashtag program, coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan, hosted by Storm Media. Today we're joined by a very special guest, the East Asia Bureau Director of Reporters Without Borders, Cédric Alviani. Cédric, welcome to the show.
Hello, Ross. Thank you.
Our topic today is going to be media freedom in Taiwan, and we'll cover the topic that gets a lot of attention, which is the encroachment or the interference from China in Taiwan's media, which would include television, newspapers, and the online media space. But first, Cédric, let's talk a little bit about media freedom generally in Taiwan. In the most recent Reporters Without Borders global ranking, Taiwan ranked 42nd worldwide. Is that good? Is that bad? Why was it 42, not 52, not 22? Give us the big picture on Taiwan's ranking and the general state of media freedom here in Taiwan.
It's not a bad ranking. Taiwan has been consistently in the past years in the top democracies in Asia, and 42nd ranking, we can consider that this is a good score in terms of freedom. The problem of Taiwan comes more from difficulties regarding the global quality of the media and the quality of the information that is available for the Taiwanese citizens. But the media can operate pretty freely in Taiwan, of course.
So not much government interference here in Taiwan in the operations of the media. Is that fair to say?
Not much government interference, this is correct, but there are a lot of political interferences that do not appear because they mostly touch the media management, but they have repercussions on the day-to-day work of journalists. And
but of course, media has its biases, right? I mean, I come from the United States. Obviously, we have media that loves President Trump. We have media that dislikes President Trump. But if you watch these media, you'll see a whole panel of guests saying good things or bad things about President Trump. I mean, isn't that just natural in any democracy? So even here in Taiwan, some TV stations are accused of being pro-government. Some are accused of being anti-government. The same with newspapers. Isn't that just a normal phenomenon in any democracy?
Well, there is still the need for the respect for facts. And in Taiwan, sometimes it's very borderline with this regard. There is also a widespread sensationalistic bidding in Taiwan that impairs the possibility for journalists in the media to do their work as well as they could. So all this is actually negative for the Taiwanese citizens. It's very difficult for the Taiwanese citizens to be able to trust the media, and I believe this has a direct consequence. This is part of the reason why Taiwan feels threatened by potential fake news attacks.
Is fake news a serious problem in Taiwan right now?
Well,
as opposed to just bad journalism, if I may say, since I'm the host, I guess I could say that, as opposed to just sloppy work, not being very thorough, or even one might say poor training. You know, younger journalists, maybe they haven't been trained by their teachers or by their more senior colleagues. So is the problem fake news, or is the problem just bad journalism?
Well, they are all related. We define fake news, actually we call it disinformation, which is the more correct term, as information that is purposely biased, that is purposely carrying a message that is aimed at deceiving the citizens. I do not want to blame Taiwanese journalists. Every student, when they graduate from a journalism school, they dream to be a Pulitzer Prize. And every journalist on earth, they want to do their work properly. The problem is that the media environment sometimes does not give journalists the possibility to do so because they are working under undue pressure. So I would say the problem with that pressure is that it might lead some legitimate journalistic media to carry fake news contents they would not have had the time to properly verify, and this is the real threat for Taiwan.
And when you point this out, whether to government officials, members of Taiwan's parliament, the legislative yuan, from any political party, the ruling party or opposition parties, and media companies, and you're speaking as a global non-government organization that looks at these issues worldwide, What kind of feedback do you get? Do people say, like, thank you so much for pointing this out, we're glad you're doing this? Or do they say, well, you're not really familiar with Taiwan, so we don't really want to take on your views. You're a foreigner, you're a global organization, you don't really understand the media scene. Everything is good here. We don't need your feedback. What kind of feedback do you get to your work?
Yeah, so Reporters Without Borders now is also a Taiwanese association. We're also registered as a local non-profit association. We have members, so we are totally legitimate to talk with the Taiwanese government, with the parties, with the civil society about the Taiwanese problems. Regarding the question of disinformation in Taiwan, I would say it's quite paradoxical. Everybody agrees that there is a threat. But so far, every solution proposed by every stakeholder is a solution that addresses the symptoms, but that does not address the cause of the problem. The solutions that are usually proposed are fact-checking. Fact-checking is extremely important, but the problem is that when the fake news has already started spreading, fact-checking is not really going to help and limit the damage. Also, it is proven that people who believe the fake news will not believe the fact-checking that's being offered to them. There's also the question of trying to block the fake news. But of course, usually it's too late. The fake news has already been circulating. There's media literacy, meaning like teach the citizens to better understand the media. The problem is that it takes generations to raise the global media literacy. And so far, in Taiwan, everybody agrees that there is a problem, there is a big threat with disinformation that poses a national security threat, but it seems that it is impossible for anyone to address the cause of the problem, which is that the public has lost their trust in journalism and that the media have problems that are sufficiently big so that they might potentially be unwillingly carrying fake news.
You mentioned some of the stakeholders and the solutions. One thing that's occurred this year in Taiwan is the ruling party, the Democratic Progressive Party, which has a majority in the legislative yuan in addition to controlling the executive branch, they've changed several laws to address some of these issues. Has that helped solve or address the issues that you've identified, or is it going in the wrong way as far as press freedom or media freedoms go?
No, it's going in a good way because there needs to be regulation and there can't be decisions from the executive power without any judicial process, so there has to be a proper regulation. And this is not a problem that is only for Taiwan. The whole world is actually struggling against fake news and nobody has the magical solution because it's still a new problem that needs new solutions. But I would say, although the authorities are doing whatever they do to try and fix the symptoms, the problem still remains, which is that the first filter against disinformation should be the media themselves. It should happen within the media themselves. And as long as Taiwan does not have a strong journalism environment with the ability for journalists to work independently, to have sufficient time to verify facts, and the media to have sufficient protection to ensure that nobody would be able and unwillingly carry disinformation contents, the problem will remain. This is a question of Taiwanese national security, but every time it is being mentioned about having a proper regulation or improving the media environment, it seems that nobody is able to do that. What we hear from every party and every stakeholder is, the media, this is going to be hard because we don't want to touch to press freedom. And there is something extremely important to mention. Press freedom is not the freedom of media owners to distribute whatever biased contents for their own interest. We define freedom of the press as actually the freedom of the citizens to receive accurate, honest, unbiased information that is going to help them to do their job as citizens, to take educated decisions. if these conditions do not work, this is not full press freedom. Press freedom does not equal to the right of distributing whatever contents. This is the law of the jungle, and Reporters Without Borders does not advocate for this. So it's very important that the authorities would do their role. I'll give you an example. Recently, Taiwan has purchased or signed for the future purchase of 66 jet fighters. Everybody agrees in every party that it is necessary for Taiwan to protect itself, right? This is the physical protection of Taiwan. But when it goes to the citizens' mind, when it goes to the way the voters are going to vote, because they might have received biased information, so far Taiwan has no protection. And the only protection is journalism. So invest even a fraction of the budget that Taiwan puts in its military budget, and I do not want to oppose both. Both are important, but just a fraction of that could bring solutions. One very important thing would be to dramatically increase the budget and independence of the public media. The public media does not equal to the government media. The public media are media that belong to the public, and it would be very important that the authorities ensure that they have sufficient funding so they could balance somehow with the commercial media. Commercial media are commercial. You can't expect them not to have revenue as a priority. So the public media should be boosted so that they would provide more better quality, accurate information. But if you compare the Taiwanese public television service, that does a great job, their annual budget equals to 4% of the South Korean public television service, while South Korea only has twice more population. This is absolutely not acceptable for a democracy like Taiwan, that the public media would be so much neglected. This is a threat to the national security of Taiwan.
Your organization recently issued a statement calling on the presidential candidates in Taiwan's election to take more steps to strengthen journalism in Taiwan. So regardless of who wins the election, what do you expect from the next president? I mean, you just mentioned one thing might be to increase the budget for public media, but what else do you expect from Taiwan's next president for improving media freedom?
The first thing we expect is not only from the first president, it's from all the parties. Taiwan needs to have the same consensus on journalism that it has on its military defense. And this needs the support of all parties. It's not going to be against freedom of the press to try and properly arrange and regulate the media sector. Regulating is not controlling. Regulating means get things organized for the benefit of the citizens. So we are expecting the next ruling party, no matter which one it is, and we're also expecting the opposition parties to work together on some better regulation and better actions to support journalism in Taiwan. Well, basically there are 5 domains we believe would be important to consider. The first one is to strengthen the editorial independence within the media. So far, journalists and redactions in the media are merely employees, and they have to follow the line that is given to them by the media owner. They should have more independence. They should be able and focus on the facts and not only on the political color of the owner. The second I just mentioned is to significantly boost the public media budget. Also because the Taiwanese public media should have a voice outside of Taiwan. In the past 10 years, the Chinese Communist Party has basically purchased all the Chinese language media in the world, the media that inform the overseas communities, and it's almost impossible for Taiwan to provide facts the front of this propaganda because the Taiwanese media do not have the ability to reach the publics outside. So that's why it's very important. The third thing is a judicial process, so that any censorship that might be necessary against fake news that would threaten the national security could be addressed with a due process and with the possibility for the citizens to have a decision reversed. This is extremely important in a democracy. The fourth request we are making is that the authorities would properly support independent journalism and ethical journalism. You know, Taiwan is the place famous for startups. It's a place famous for small and medium enterprises. I do not see that in the media sector. The media sector is still dominated by a few huge players that exist for a very long time, and it's extremely difficult for new companies to get even a small part of the media market. So it would be very important that the authorities give to the media startups the same support that they give to other startups that they consider as, you know, key for the future of Taiwan. And the fifth, of course, is media literacy. It takes time, but that's why it has to be done now. It would be capital that the Ministry of Education includes in the textbooks from the younger age some basic education to critical thinking, education to media literacy, because even, and it has been proven in some experiences in other countries, an 8-year-old kid is totally able to distinguish between a fake news and a legitimate piece of information. An 8-year-old kid is absolutely able nowadays to make the distinction between a fake picture and a real picture. And this has to be done now. This is an investment Taiwan cannot neglect because it is about the future of its democracy.
And that's a good way to transition into questions about China's role in Taiwan's media scene, and specifically in the ongoing election campaign season, the election coming up in just a few weeks on January 11th. What is China doing? What is China not doing? What are they accused of doing and the accusations are true? What are they accused of doing and the accusations are not true? Give us an overview of what China is doing within Taiwan's media scene, whether television, print, or online.
This is very difficult to answer this question. Reporters Without Borders has published earlier this year a 52-page report that is called China's Pursuit of a New World, China's Pursuit of a New World Media Order, and that is talking about the efforts of the Chinese propaganda to try and impact on the media worldwide, including Taiwan. However, it's very difficult to have details, and think tanks and universities are probably more qualified to study these things. I would say that Taiwan makes a mistake by focusing on China and by blaming China for these attacks. China is China. The Chinese Communist Party is what it is, and we cannot expect that in the coming years, considering the claim they have on Taiwan, they would do anything else but attack Taiwan, including with disinformation campaigns. This is a waste of time. Taiwan has to consider its own weaknesses and how to protect from these attacks. This is everything that counts. No matter where these attacks come from, no matter how, the thing is that Taiwan is weak and Taiwan has to protect itself. And so far, I believe the stakeholders in these discussions have spent too much time talking on something that everybody knows and everybody agrees on, which is that China is going to attack Taiwan with disinformation and that Taiwan needs to protect itself. Now it's about time to build this protection, and this means to strengthen journalism. This is the key message, and it is not impossible.
Does it impact voter behavior in Taiwan? So if we go back a little over a year ago to the local elections that took place here in Taiwan in November 2018, and there were some surprising results. The Kuomintang candidates did better than expected, and most notably in Kaohsiung, where Han Kuo-yu was elected after being behind in the polls most of the preceding months. But that wasn't the only city or county where the Kuomintang was surprisingly successful last year. And then there was this narrative ever since then that, well, it was, you know, China and their disinformation and the other things China did online that influence voter behavior. Is it accurate? Is this disinformation from China, is it changing or impacting how voters make decisions in Taiwan? Because you talk a lot about voter education and educated public being so important. So does it filter down to the individual decisions that voters make when they actually go to check off their ballots?
It may have an impact mostly at the time when people are undecided. People who already have a strong, you know, commitment, who already made their decision, are probably not going to change their mind overnight because of fake news. But some people who are not decided or who might not have gone to vote might actually take a decision or change their mind because of this fake news. So anyway, this is a threat, this is a danger. And I would say no matter how serious it is currently, what you have to consider when you're building a defense system is how serious can it become. Yes. What is the seriousness of the Chinese physical attacks on Taiwan? So far it is zero. They haven't attacked Taiwan, but you're not going to wait for the attack to happen to start building your protection. And this is exactly the same for disinformation. Taiwan has to assess the danger and has to build a strong protection that takes place before the fake news circulates and not after. And this is why it is key that Taiwan strengthens journalism and journalism environment, and also that Taiwan restores the trust of the citizens in the media. This has to come from the public media.
And as part of that, where's the line, though? So, what should be banned, for example? You know, what should you? Chinese television, right? It's not shown here. I mean, I think the voters and the public are educated enough, despite the concerns that you identified, that if they were watching China Central Television, they would know that, well, this is just the official view from China. So why shouldn't we show that to the public in Taiwan so they can see what the other side says?
When we talk about freedom of the press, we talk about freedom for the citizens to receive journalistic contents. We do not talk about freedom for propaganda media to be distributed in democracies. We do not advocate for media that obviously engage in state propaganda to have the same facilities provided by the states and to be able and have satellite and have the cable coverage. This is not acceptable. We know there is a difficulty because all media, seen from the outside, all media look the same. They use the same tools, they use the same equipment, they use the same language. And for someone from the outside who wouldn't know the media world, it's sometimes difficult to know which one is a legitimate, serious media and which one engaged in propaganda. Reporters Without Borders, with more than 200 stakeholders in the world that include the major social media and that include the major press agencies and journalism corporations, we are actually coming with a project called Journalism Trust Initiative. And this project is starting, including in Taiwan. The idea is to have an industrial certification that can be compared to organic food certification that would be applied on media. The idea of certifications is that it's impossible to certify every product that comes out from a factory, but it's possible to certify the process of production of the product. Because this is scalable, this can be done no matter how many millions of products, and this is perfectly applicable to the production of news, which is also an industry. So actually we are starting to promote this certification, and right now every media including the very small ones, are able to contact Reporters Without Borders and to enter this certification process. It won't be operated by us. The idea is that a professional independent certification organization would certify worldwide the media on a very simple set of standards, like how do they produce information. And the idea is that in the future, governments, social media, and the public would be able to discriminate between media that engage in journalism and media that do not, without having to make that decision themselves, because they would have some criteria to make that decision. We of course don't want the social media or the governments to censor and decide what is legitimate news and what is fake news. So we need to come with another solution, and we believe that journalism trust initiative would be a key element to restore the public trust in the media. And furthermore, it would allow, because social media are going to provide benefits in their algorithm for media that have this certification, it's going to upgrade quality media in the search engines, meaning that the fake news would just disappear without any censorship. Because we always, when we talk about disinformation, everybody always talks about how can we block fake news. The question is, how do you upgrade quality contents so that fake news are not going to appear anymore?
We've been talking with Cédric Alviani of Reporters Without Borders about Taiwan's media scene and media freedom, disinformation, and their very important journalism trust initiative, which they are rolling out, and hopefully will improve some of the concerns that we talked about within Taiwan's media scene. Cédric, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, Ross.